Right, good evening. Get started for today's session. Okay, so for those of you who are first time, welcome to today's sharing over here. And for those of you who have been joining us for some time, you know our routine. So welcome back. So first, very quickly, I'll spend a couple of minutes to share with those of you who are very new to what we do over here on a Monday. Okay, for the first segment, what I'll do is I'll share with you my personal views and some of the potential setups that I'm looking at for the week. And then after that, for the remaining time, I'll open up the room here for Q&A. Okay, so whenever you have questions with regards to trading, investing, or let's say any particular instruments that you like me to share my view and analysis on, that's where you'll be able to just put it up, drop it into the comments or chat box, and then from there I'll be able to take a look and answer your questions accordingly. Okay, so first up over here, before we jump into the charts and to look at some opportunities, I think I'll give you a very quick, I would say interesting happenings or updates if you're not aware of in the market, right? This is actually just from last Friday over the weekend. If you're actually actively monitoring what's happening in the financial market, I think you probably come across these articles here as well already. Okay, so first up over here, if you're in crypto, this is the latest news that was released. Okay, you can see over here, 14 June, where Elon Musk say that Tesla will use back Bitcoin if let's say the mining is able to be a little bit more environmentally friendly moving forward. Okay, so it becomes a little bit of like ding dong, right? You can see how Elon Musk have a certain power as to how he can control Bitcoin movement and of course Dogecoin back then as well. Yeah, right. So how it started with like Tesla buying a little bit of Bitcoin, and then starting to say that Tesla will accept Bitcoin, and then after that Tesla not accepting Bitcoin, and then now back to Tesla will use Bitcoin again if the mining is cleaner. Okay, so of course this is gonna push prices in the market, correct? But what I want you to know is that of course you do not want to just trade it, okay, or make any decision just because of a headline like that. Of course it can easily reverse, right? And that's not a strategy that you want to follow. Okay, but this definitely gave a little bit of positive sentiment to the Bitcoin market, to crypto. Okay, and later we'll take a look at the chart on that as well. Okay, the other one is on last Friday, US CPI and core CPI. Okay, which is important data that you want to keep a very close watch to, because that's essentially telling you what's the current inflation rate in the US. Okay, and on top of employment, inflation is also very important. Okay, because you do see right now, the headline on this is that inflation is actually rising at the highest rate since 2008, right? Okay, so you can see over here, if you just Google this, I think most articles will report about the same idea, the same content. CPI is basically at an annual rate of 5%. Okay, and it's highest since August 2008. Okay, so number one, okay, I think you need to also take note is that inflation, if it's too high or rising too fast, it's not a good thing, because it's gonna hurt the retail market. Okay, retail means general people, you and I, because inflation basically tracks goods and services, the prices of goods and services. So if it's going up too high, what it simply means is that the value of your money is going to drop drastically. Okay, and if it's not controlled, we'll go into hyperinflation, and you can take a look at Zimbabwe currency, right? That's how what inflation has caused Zimbabwe currency to become where it is today. So definitely the Fed will not allow hyperinflation. Okay, but what I feel is that the Fed is really stuck right now in a way that they mentioned that they're very committed to continue their easing policy, okay, to ensure that the long-term inflation is going to hit back to an average of 2%. Okay, and this rise of CPI and inflation data is just short-term, right? That's what the Fed is doing or saying. However, it might be too late when the Fed finally decide to take action. Okay, and of course they can't just kind of like jump ship or like rotate. Where one meeting they say no, and then the other meeting they immediately 180 degrees change their perception, right? That would also cause panic and lose confidence on the Fed, right? The market will be panic and lose confidence in that, and there will be chaos in the financial market as well. Okay, so what I feel is that the Fed is more or less in terms of current situation, they are more or less trapped. Okay, so what I would say, okay, is it's very interesting to really, I think not only interesting, but I would say very important to actually keep track on that. Okay, and adding on to that, we have another piece of data that's coming in from the US tomorrow. Okay, so again, these are not that important, but it's still tracking inflation, right? Core retail sales and retail sales. And what's more important, I think, is that this week we have the FOMC statement. Okay, so this one here you definitely need to keep an eye on, because this would give us some forward guidance into what the US dollar is likely gonna be. What's the trajectory of that? And if today you're into the stocks market, okay, this would affect the stock market performance as well. Okay, so in other words, I think it's very important to keep track on Thursday's rate statement. Okay, so few kind of like keywords that you want to keep track of is if the Fed decides to start tapering, or if the Fed decides to start slowing down their quantitative easing policy. This would definitely see a spike in the dollar, okay, and we'll see a dip in the equities market. Okay, so keep in mind on that. However, if the Fed, on this Thursday, we're gonna say that this is just again transitory, short term. They still need more time to monitor how the economic data is gonna perform, and they're gonna continue their easing policy as it is. Okay, then the market would likely just remain as status quo. It might give a little bit confidence back to market. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Obviously, I won't know what is gonna come out on Thursday, but once it's out, we'll be able to have a better understanding of what's the trajectory, forward guidance of that. Okay, so with that said, let me bring you to the dollar index chart first. Over here, okay, and we do see kind of like a mini bounce from the dollar index for now. Okay, but take note that from a technical point of view, it has yet to clear off this high. Around the $90.60, right? And I personally believe that the market is probably not going to break this level strongly up until Thursday FOMC. Okay, so I believe the Thursday FOMC is probably going to provide some catalyst to see whether the dollar is going to reject back down. Okay, and then this would then be just a mini double top. Double top, and then continue lower. Okay, or if depending on what's going to happen on Thursday FOMC, this can easily be the rejection and it starts going up. Okay, and then this breaks through it. Okay, so over here, of course, we're gonna see this consolidate until all the way Thursday. Yeah, so in terms of dollar, likely you won't get any opportunity if you're looking at trading most of these major pairs. Okay, in terms of Bitcoin over here, okay, you can see that provide a little bit of a bounce, positive sentiment from Elon Musk. Okay, but I would suggest you still want to be a little bit cautious over here, because until this high here of 42420 is broken and taken out, there's a good chance this can just rise temporary and still come back down. Okay, so you want to then of course assess if you're looking to buy, is this kind of like an interesting area for you to capitalize on, right? So yep, hey, to me Bitcoin, I think short term the positive sentiment is going to continue and flow through, and market can probably come back up to 42420 somewhere here. Okay, and then after that you want to keep a very close watch as to how the market is developing. If the momentum is strong enough and it breaks through, starts to form a consolidation, then I think you can start to see more upside from there. Okay, so key level for Bitcoin here is going to be 42420. Okay, now having said all that, I'll bring you to some of the pairs that I'm personally looking out for. Okay, first up over here, okay, I'll share a view on dollar yen first. Okay, maybe I'll bring you to the daily time frame here as well. You can see what I'm looking at on a higher time frame perspective. So dollar yen, from this recent peak on the daily chart, we see a very clear impulse push followed by a corrective pattern like that. So we are expecting another push down lower back to this previous low here at 107.45. So from a daily time frame perspective, the direction is pretty clear cut. We are looking for the sell trade. Now, if I go down to the 4-hour time frame, I'm also seeing a pattern that I can recognize where we see this double top formation. Price breaks down very strongly as an impulse. Then right now it's doing its correction. Okay, so this pattern here again suggests there's a good chance this will continue lower. Okay, so with that, that's where I start to go lower to a 1-hour time frame, and you can see similar pattern here developing as well. Okay, of course, right now what I'm seeing is that this can potentially be a topping formation. Okay, and you can see for an execution, if it fits into your plan, maybe a potential breakout. Okay, or if some of you are using kind of like a retracement setup, maybe you want to see at this top here, is there a rejection pattern that you can execute the trade as well. Right, just bear in mind that we do have FOMC on Thursday. Okay, so maybe this pair here might not move a lot up until Thursday, okay, because it has a dollar inside it as well. Okay, but the direction I'm gonna keep a very close watch on is definitely gonna be the sell side. Okay, I'm not so much interested in the buy direction, so I'm just focusing on any sell opportunity available. Then I'll look to take that trade, right? So dollar yen, I think, is one of the pair I'm gonna keep a very close watch because within the week it has a good chance that it can start going down as well. The other pair that you want to keep an eye on is Aussie CAD. Okay, so I think Aussie CAD and dollar CAD here are more or less pretty similar. So what I'm looking out for over here on Aussie CAD is the buy trade. Okay, daily might not be that clear, but essentially what is happening on a daily is that you see market is coming down, but it has slower momentum, right? It lacks the energy, that momentum to keep going already. And we do see kind of like a small bounce, right? I think, let me bring you back to 4 hour, it will be clearer on that scale. Okay, so you can see this is the one that I mentioned, right? We call it the crawl. We have a V-shaped formation here. After that, we have a correction. So we are expecting this to go higher from there. Okay, so Aussie CAD, you can also focus on this potential pair. It's pretty clear in the pattern and the setup. The direction we're going to focus is on the buy side, right? Look for buy opportunity. Okay. Again, there are multiple ways you can get involved in it. Some of you who are familiar with patterns can trade this as an expanding. Some of you who are familiar with Fibonacci, you can look for retracement. Some of you who are looking for breakout, okay, this is the high, wait for the break. Okay, so there are many ways to get involved in the trade. Okay, at the end of the day, you need to have a certain strategy. Okay, so my role here is to really help you identify some potential opportunities and setup so that hopefully it will help you to kind of like streamline your focus for the week as well. Okay, so this is on Aussie CAD. Okay, the other one over here that I want to quickly mention is also on the CAD, which is dollar CAD. Okay, now some of you probably know that for the past, I think, couple of weeks we have been monitoring dollar CAD. Okay, and we have been also sharing that dollar CAD is actually at its multi-year low. So if you go back to like maybe on the monthly chart, you can see this low here is all the way stretching back to 2017. Okay, and all the way back to 2015. Okay, so since 2015, 2017, it has never really come back to this zone, but today we are here right now. Right, so that is crucial because again, these are very, very high time frame, and these areas here are definitely very important to keep a close watch at. Okay, so what we are seeing right now is yep, on the 4 hour we might see a small little break to the upside, but for me, I think it's a little bit too early to have like look for the buy immediately right now. You want to also factor in, again, we have FOMC. This has dollar pair inside. Okay, so one I would say safer way to take a trade is maybe wait for the breakout to have some form of confirmation with the FOMC being a potential catalyst to have your trade in. Okay, so I would say an easier way to wait for is not easier, I would say safer way is to wait for a flag that looks something like that, and then you execute from there. Okay, because what I'm seeing over here is this can easily just be a middle portion that corrects this entire piece down, and then another push back to 1.2010. That's very possible as well. Okay, so I think what's gonna be the important factor to determine this is FOMC catalyst. Okay, because again we do have the dollar inside it. Okay, but I'm not interested so much of the sell side. Okay, because the risk to reward ratio is definitely not gonna be that attractive. But I'm more interested in upside, right? So I would suggest if you're keen, and look up for opportunities on dollar CAD as well. Okay. Other than that, we have pound Australia. Pound Australia, I'm actually looking to sell. You do realize that this setup over here is fairly similar to dollar yen. Okay, you have this topping formation, push down, correction. Okay. If I go to pound Australia, you do see that similar structure as well. Double top, impulse down, correction. Okay. So I'm also looking for the downside on pound Australia. Okay, on the daily time frame, the downside is pretty much attractive as well. There's a good chance this can come down all the way back to 7415, right? And that is definitely a huge risk to reward trade that you want to keep a close watch. Okay, so look at that. Okay, pound Australia for the downside. Other than that, we are looking at also a couple of Australia currency pairs over here. Okay, so we have Aussie dollar, Aussie yen, and Aussie New Zealand. Okay, so Aussie dollar over here on the daily, this pattern is very clear. You can see this as a potential head and shoulder pattern. Okay, of course, then that's the neckline. Right now on this scale is a little bit more towards like an impulse, maybe a running flat. This can keep going down, come back to retest this zone, maybe a little bit of consolidation, and if it does, it can continue falling. Okay, so Aussie dollar over here, I'm more keen on the sell side because of the opportunity, the room for it to go down is way greater than, let's say, if I take a buy, maybe only this portion I can look to profit. Okay, on the forward time frame, though, you want to be a little bit careful over here. Okay, because if you're not familiar with Elliott Wave, this is actually one of the running flat pattern, which means you have this impulse, this is a correction, and from here it can start going too. Okay, but again, we do have the dollar in this pair here, so you want to be patient. Okay, and maybe you want to ride on the catalyst on FOMC. Okay, which means if depending on where you are, okay, if you're in Malaysia, Singapore, FOMC is gonna happen like midnight Wednesday. Okay, if you're in US, then of course that becomes a Thursday. Then what happens over here is you want to wait out until closer towards FOMC release before you make a decision on whether to trade or not to trade. Okay, and of course, ideally this is gonna just consolidate all the way until FOMC, and if that happens, we have a very solid trade to the downside. Okay, so all the Aussie pair here I'm looking at is the downside. I'm looking for a sell opportunity. Okay, Aussie yen here is fairly straightforward as well on the high time frame. You can see topping formation, very slow, no momentum. You're expecting this to come back down. Okay, so Aussie yen also look for the sell. Okay, right now you probably need to have a little bit patient and wait for a setup. Aussie New Zealand also potentially looking for a sell, at least for the short term. Okay, where you can see right now this is testing its previous high. It has yet to be broken. Okay, so of course you don't sell it now, but there's a good chance this can come back down towards 1.0705 region. Okay, so it's a pretty decent short-term sell trade. Maybe this you need to go down to a lower time frame and look out for a sell setup. Okay, right now it's definitely not a sell trade yet. Okay, so there are multiple ways again to execute a trade. You need to be careful. This can easily develop into a flag and continue its way up. Okay, so right now as of today, I would say I would focus on the sell side. Okay, but no setup yet. You probably need to wait a while. Give it, I would say, another 2-3 days, and come back on Thursday to see how price has developed. whether it's still telling you to look for the sell, or you want to transit into maybe focusing on buy setup, buy opportunity. Okay, but for now, with what we are saying, this is more like a potential double top formation here. Okay, that's on Aussie Kiwi. Of all pairs, Aussie Kiwi is not the clearest, right? So yeah, that's the part on that. Yeah, last one on FX here. You can keep an eye on Euro Auth. Okay, let me clean this up a little bit. On the daily time frame, okay, Euro Auth is rather straightforward. Okay, you see this as a very clean corrective pattern after this strong push. So we are looking for this to potentially come back down to this bottom, to form that double bottom, and then maybe from there this can go up, right? Now on the 4-hour time frame though, you might need to be a bit familiar with Elliott Wave. What I'm seeing over here is the potential expanding flat that looks something like that. So you have this impulse, you have this 3-wave expanding flat structure, so we're expecting this to keep falling from there, right? So it's not easy to kind of like trade this kind of setup. So perhaps what would be clearer is you want to give it maybe a clear rejection, and then you can take the breakout here, or you wait for a setup that is clearer and then flag, and then you take this down. Okay, some of you who are perhaps a little bit more into harmonic patterns, you can also start to see maybe if this would form kind of like a harmonic structure somewhere at the top, you can take that trade down. Okay, or you can just pull in a simple Fibonacci if that's part of your trading strategy and plan, right? So there are many ways to get involved in it. For Euro Australia, my direction for the week is the sell trade. Okay, so ideally that helps as well. Yeah, so that's the few pairs that I'm personally looking out for this week. To kind of like add on, okay, I think gold here is also giving us a very decent opportunity. But you want to be very careful with FOMC, right? Because gold, okay, as an asset itself, and of course we are looking at gold against US dollar. Okay, so you need to understand that gold as an asset itself have certain factors that can affect it, and most commonly gold is traded against US dollar, and therefore US dollar is going to affect gold as well. Okay, so we have FOMC. Okay, I think I said that enough times. Keep an eye on that. But at the same time, inflation rate and what the Fed is going to do about the inflation in terms of their monetary policy is going to have quite a significant impact in gold. Okay, now gold can be also seen as an asset for inflationary hedge, which means that if inflation is to pick up, there will be a stronger demand in gold. Okay, so if inflation is hot, gold prices tends to rally. If there is no fear of inflation, then gold prices generally will probably not be rallying. Okay, so you can see that way. But of course, this is only one factor, right? It's not like that's the only thing that moves. No. Okay, there are many things that are gonna move gold, but that's one factor. Right? So my macro play on gold is that I'm expecting the valuation of dollar to keep weakening, which means that inflation is gonna kick in, and the value of the dollar is gonna drop, and with that, gold is gonna rise. Okay. Now, of course, it's not gonna just keep going up, but you need to give it time. Okay. Now, this is I taking a little bit back onto like what happened in 2009, 2008, where we have a global recession and the Fed actually decides to print money as well, right? And 2020 last year, the Fed did that too, right? So I'm actually using that to compare it, and that's where there is a big room for gold to still rally from here. However, you want to keep track of it, because if the Fed decides to be a little bit more hawkish and they start to hint an earlier tapering policy, we'll see gold actually continue falling. Right? So I would say this week is gonna be very crucial to some of this major play here. Okay, because with what I'm seeing on the technical chart, it can easily be a bounce, or it can easily keep fall. Okay, so again, you want to see what's gonna happen on Thursday, right? From from a technical point of view, this is a valid 3-wave correction for it to higher. But at the same time, this can just consolidate here and then fall if the Fed is hawkish. Okay. So keep an eye on that. If you're not in gold yet, maybe you want to wait until Thursday. After that, take a look at the statement from Federal Reserve and you'll see whether it's in favor of buying gold. If you're already in gold, ideally you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't get involved in gold anyway at this point. What I would then suggest is just shift your stops, protect it, okay? Because you can expect maybe a little bit of volatility coming in for this week, right? Especially closer to like Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah, so just want to touch a little bit on gold side. Good. Yeah, right. So that's what I'm monitoring at the moment. Okay. With what I have on hand today, based on price, based on data. Okay. But of course, I need you to know that as the week progresses, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, things might change. Okay. So the bias in terms of the direction that I'm focusing might change as well. So keep that in mind, right? What I'm sharing over here is based on what we are seeing right now. Okay. So great. Now I'll open up the remaining time over here for Q&A. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I'm seeing already some of you are typing in. If you have any particular pair that you'd like me to share an opinion on, okay, you can actually put it in as well. Okay, so I see Aaron asking about dollar cat, which I think we talked about that pair already. Okay, dollar sing and pound yen. Okay, now I feel that dollar sing again, it all boils back down to what's gonna happen for the dollar. Okay, on I would say on Thursday, right, with Fed. Okay, this chart here looks pretty much quite similar to dollar cat, honestly. Right? With this, I would say you want to maybe focus a little bit more to the upside. I think the room to the upside looks more attractive compared to like if you are trying to squeeze the sell here, because we are pretty much closer to this double bottom already, right? So I would say the more attractive opportunity on dollar sing will be upside. And there is a potential if, let's say, depending again on how the dollar is going to drive it, you have a chance of it seeing it back all the way to 3,530. Okay, so pretty decent move. I would say upside, the room here is also attractive, so you can keep an eye on it definitely for dollar sing. Okay, in terms of pound yen, okay, it's not a pair that I would like to focus too much for this week, because seeing how price is developing over here like that, okay, this always tell me that there's a higher chance this will go back up first. Okay, back to perhaps this high here at 156. I'm not interested in the buy, because if you just look at that, current price is around 155. If let's say you put the target here at 156, you only have about 100 pips of room for you to kind of capitalize on it. Okay, of course this can break above 156, but you want to be taking note of this key here, because this can be just a rejection and coming back down. So again, these are not a trade that I'll just worry too much. I will not spend too much time looking at that as well. Okay, but rather I will wait for it to come back up to 156, somewhere around this zone, to look for a sell, because the downside looks a little bit more attractive. Okay, you can see the downside here looks more attractive as compared to that little room to the upside. Okay, so for me, pound yen short term, if you're looking at intraday, yep, you can look for the buy. If you're looking at swing trade perspective, then don't touch it yet. Okay, over here we have a question from okay, I might not be pronouncing your name very accurately. Okay, I think Rodelia is asking about is it okay to trade dollar CNH, okay, which is Chinese yuan, right? Now I first up over here, I don't think it's just about Okay, I don't think it's just about this week or not. I would say that if you're looking to trade the Chinese yuan, it's a very manipulative currency. Okay. China essentially can control their currency, okay, to a certain extent, of course, right? So it's not as global as really is. Yes, they are progressively moving towards taking the status of a global reserve currency. But you still have like that offshore Chinese yuan, and then you have the mainland internal Chinese yuan. So until that is kind of like resolved, and there's a total, maybe not total, but more transparency in currency itself, it's still very manipulative. Okay, so I would suggest you want to be very careful if you're trading the yuan. From a chart perspective, um, daily is not really giving me a lot of sign. Okay, which means that short term the momentum might just continue. Right, you can see the momentum is definitely coming down. So short term, I'm seeing that the momentum can continue lower. But of course, we have FOMC, so a lot of things can actually play out very differently. This can easily just do something like that and bounce off with a double bottom, and then back to this top here. Okay, so right now, there isn't sufficient information for me to give you a very clear projection in terms of like which direction you want to focus on. Okay, I think with this 4-hour chart, there's a little bit more room that they can go up. Okay, something like that. But we have FOMC again, so maybe it's just gonna consolidate back up over here, and then I don't know, maybe Thursday it will just drop with the Fed statement. So yeah, okay, I would say maybe this week you want to just stay out. In fact, actually, most of the dollar pair, you're likely not gonna get any clear sign, and I would suggest you want to just be in a sit and wait position for the dollar, or the way until the Fed statement is released, right? And then that's where you gain a much better idea, some clarity in terms of the dollar, and then you can make more informed decision from there. Yeah, so I hope that helps clarify a little bit on my thought on this. Hey, I see Wei here. Yeah, right. So Coco, okay. Randy is asking on euro dollar. Okay, now I think euro dollar is probably gonna be the same thing that I'm sharing on the dollar over here. Okay, it's probably not gonna be giving us any clear sign, right? So nothing has changed actually since last week, right? Euro dollar has been just doing this pattern here. You can see, a lot of V shapes are forming, and these are environment that's just very difficult for you to go and trade it. Okay, and this week we have again the dollar news here, so very difficult to actually anticipate the direction. From a technical point of view, this can go back up and then drop. Okay, but again, it doesn't need to do that, because from a higher time frame, okay, we do have that topping formation, maybe a slight bounce here, and then from there that can drop too, right? So too many possibilities as of now based on the way that I'm looking at this chart. And usually when I encounter something like that, I would just suggest just leave it aside, right? Eventually it'll get clear, but for now it's just not clear. Okay, cool. Okay, so great. Adrian is asking on silver. Okay, to me, silver and gold is actually pretty much similar. Okay, so you probably will want to also take note of how FOMC is going to affect this pair. Okay, not just short term, but overall as well, because the monetary policy from Fed will affect how the commodities on precious metal is going to react as well. Okay, short term here, I think you have a good chance this will just continue down towards $27 on silver. if the Fed is gonna be bearish, okay, 9:30, you can see the US market is open and it's moving. Okay, now if the Fed is gonna be bearish, dovish, okay, which means that they're gonna maintain their monetary policy, in terms of easing policy, then this would still be a buy somewhere around $27. Okay, but if the Fed is hawkish and they are showing sign and indication that they are gonna hike interest soon, um, this can just keep going down. Okay, so keep an eye on $27, right? See how price is gonna react around there, right? If you get a V-shaped formation around $27, then that will be great. You can actually look for the buy. Yeah. Good. William asked about dollar franc. Dollar franc. Okay. Dollar franc over here. If you are looking at short-term play, right? Actually, you have a clear sign that you can take this trade up. But understand that usually if we have a high priority news like FOMC statement, the dollar is likely gonna just consolidate all the way until the news comes out. Okay. Short-term play, I think if this gonna consolidate like that all the way until FOMC, you can actually play this trade short-term to the upside, and then look for the breakout entry. Trade it in the way where you're riding on the catalyst of FOMC. Okay, so the idea is wait for the news to release, maybe a panic breakout, and then if the news is gonna push this pair up, you wanna get in when that statement is released, right? Something like that. That's what we meant by riding on the catalyst. Very similar to like news trading. So yeah, that's my view on dollar franc. Other than that, it's basically right now middle. There's a good chance this will come back up, but other than that, that's about it. First, you want to keep a very close watch on what the Fed is going to talk about it. Okay, we have one question on NZD-JPY. NZD-JPY on the higher time frame, pretty clear cut. You'll be focusing on the downside. I would say the potential room that you want to focus is definitely down towards 7560. However, I think for the short term here, maybe for the entire of this week, you are likely going to see some kind of deeper correction that's developing, maybe something like that. Okay, so I would say this week, you want to just give it time. Very high chance this would just continue up like that. If you are a short-term trader, you might want to look out for short-term buy. But if you're a swing trader, then leave this pair for the week. It will come back up to this top here. Then that will be a very good sell opportunity. Okay. So depending on what scale and time frame you are, if you're short term, you can look for the buy. If you have a valid setup, right? But short term because slightly coming up here only. If you're long term swing style, wait for it. Okay. Great. So we have Jeff here asking about DJI. This. Okay, so the stock market is coming down a little bit as of today's opening. Okay, again, I want you to understand why is this happening, right? If you still remember at the very start, we talked about inflation, right? And I talked about how the Fed have like monetary policy and their decision making is gonna have an impact in the stock market as well, right? Globally as a financial market. Okay, and you can see how as of now, right now, right, as we're speaking, the market seems to be coming down, right? Generally, not a lot, but it seems like it's kind of like a little bit on the momentum on the downside. Okay, this can also be attributed to because last Friday we have a very good inflation data, and then naturally traders will start to anticipate, oh, if the inflation is so good, the Fed might start to talk about tapering, and then traders are always in anticipation of something happening. Okay, which means that the decision that you make as a trader is always to the future. Okay, so what will happen is that if I'm a trader, I saw the inflation data so good, my next expectation is that the Fed is likely going to start being hawkish, right? And if the Fed is going to be hawkish, then the financial market is going to come down, and therefore as a trader maybe I want to sell it first, okay, or even maybe I want to close off some of my buy position, right? And that's how most traders would trade the market, okay, in anticipation of something. So if you take a look at that, okay, I can kind of like confidently say that until FOMC this Thursday, okay, or Wednesday, depending on where you are, the market in terms of equities as well, like DJI, likely gonna see some pressure coming down. Okay, whether is this gonna be like a short-term thing, and then Fed is gonna come in and say that no, guys, this station is just gonna be transitory, short-term, not gonna do anything about it. Then from there, this can obviously still go higher. Okay? So a lot of all this again boils back down to what's gonna happen this Thursday. Okay, so if you ask me on terms of equities market for this week, very likely most for the entire, would say half of the week, you're gonna see this come down like that. Okay, but Thursday can literally change things, right? Thursday can shoot this back up, or Thursday can bring this down. Okay, so that's my view on general equities market. So it doesn't matter whether you're trading Dow Jones, S&P, Nasdaq, generally more or less the other. Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm seeing another question over here, asking on oil. Okay, I think since the last time we talked about oil, there's a slight change roughly. Okay, you can see the momentum continue higher. I wouldn't look to buy it with this kind of structure. Okay, especially when price is here. Okay, you can see how many times it's tested. Most of the time it comes back down, right? So expect this to come down too. Okay. So in terms of oil, there's still that chance this can come back down like that. Okay, but of course with what has developed, since this move here, it kind of like resetted this and want to then now reference more towards this low here. 8686. Yeah, so if you ask me, I'm not interested in the buy for sure. Okay, it's still not a sell setup yet. Okay, but of course, for those of you who are familiar with something like that, you can look for a breakout downside, right? So this is what we term it as like a wedge, diagonal. We call it a crawl pattern. Okay, so yep, very simple here on oil. Okay, the pattern here is definitely not a buy, but a little bit too early to sell yet. Okay, but you want to focus more on the downside because you have higher chance of capitalizing more profits from that direction. Okay, good. I see another question from Krishna. How will be the next 2 quarter for FX market? That's a very very long projection, right? 2 quarters. That's all the way until end of the year. Okay. Now if you're talking about like mega, like big move, trade of the year kind of thing, there isn't much of a very clear setup. Okay, but I would say pairs like maybe Euro odd. Okay, this might be very interesting for the next 2 quarters. Pound Australia, definitely very interesting to keep an eye on. Okay, again, these are all on daily chart, so huge movement that you can look to capitalize on. Yeah, honestly, other than that, not much. Okay, that's really all that I can see right now. Okay, some other pairs over here is not really that ready yet. Okay, yeah, so not as clear again. I hope because some of you probably actually saw like at the very start of the year we talked about dollar yen, right? Something like that. This was very clear. Okay, but you don't get trades like that every month. Okay, so I would say as of now the closest that you probably can catch, I mean closest here I'm referring to like cleanest and most, I would say easiest, straightforward, okay, is pound odd and euro odd. Okay, and coincidentally, both have Australia inside in it, right? Yeah, so keep an eye on these two pairs. Great. Good. Any other questions that you guys would like to clarify? All good? Any more questions? Pairs you'd like to understand a little bit more? Okay, other than that, that's all actually from my side. Okay, unless you guys would like to understand a little bit more about the stock market, okay, I would say we're gonna focus on TSM, okay, which is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. If you're still not aware, maybe I'll just share with you some global macro trends over here. So in terms of like equities market that some of you might be able to still have like capitalized on. Um, I think these are not new, but maybe you probably forgotten or you did not really take notice of it. Okay, but I want you to really pay very close attention to this industry here called the semiconductor. Globally, there is a shortage. Okay, this is not news anymore. Everyone knows. Okay, when I mean everyone, it's not just the traders and the investor. Everyone I'm referring to, everyone who is in this industry requiring semiconductor, whether is it the producer, the supplier, the manufacturer, the retail chain, people who are selling in shops, shopping malls, they know about this as well. Okay, so it's not new anymore, and it's gonna be quite scary, okay, in a way, because this shortage in the semiconductor space is gonna drive price up. Okay, and I want you to know that in terms of supply and demand, if there's a shortage in supply, the manufacturers and the producers are gonna have a bigger bargaining chip. Okay, which means that if today I'm supplying semiconductor and I know there's a global shortage, I can actually increase my price and I have the bargaining power to do it. Okay, because they, if you don't buy from me, someone else would, right? Because there's a shortage, right? And if I jack up my price, people will still come and buy from me. Okay, so there is where the opportunity comes in, because then you can look out for companies that are producing this, okay, in the next maybe 2 or 3 quarters. Okay, you are gonna see these companies that are in this industry producing semiconductor, their earnings report are gonna be higher naturally, because this is how the business will work, right? If today I have a bargaining power, I know there's a higher demand out there and there's a shortage of supply, I'm gonna increase my price and I'm gonna make more. My profits are gonna be better, my earnings are gonna be better, um, and that's where the stock price will also get better. Okay, so keep an eye on that. Definitely, this is gonna be playing out in the next few quarters already. Okay, so one of the very good solid company you want to really have it in your radar is TSM. I do have position in it already. Okay, look for that buy. Okay, and of course TSM is a fundamental company, is solid. Okay, the other play over here you want to keep an eye on is artificial intelligence. Okay, we call it AI. Um, and companies that you want to keep an eye on, of course, is gonna be Apple. That's for sure. Okay, uh, this is probably gonna be the next trend that's gonna happening, right? When we talk about AI here, we are referring to, of course, not your robots, okay, not those that you see in the movies. Yes, that included in AI. But AI here also refers to like virtual reality. On that space, AI also refers to like your self-driving vehicles. Okay, where Tesla has a little bit on that as well. Those are AI as well, right? And of course, when we talk about big data, that also falls into AI. To me, I categorize that into AI as well. Okay, so Apple is definitely well positioned to leverage on this industry. Okay, so keep a close watch on Apple, and then of course another company you want to keep an eye on, Microsoft. Okay, so those two here definitely you want to pay attention to. Yeah, so I think this is generally the two quite obvious trend that is picking up. And I think if you're interested, you can look into sustainable energy, okay, or renewable energy, this sector here. But this is a little bit too early. Okay, I feel that we are not yet ready, as as a world, okay, globally not ready to fully accept or fully adapt or adopt sustainable energy. Okay, yes, there are people who are pushing for that. There's still a good chunk of people who don't really care. Okay, um, so I feel that this sector, this industry here is not yet ready to pick up. So with that said, of course, then a lot of all these companies that are dealing with sustainable energy are not gonna see that clear sign of rally yet. Okay, but eventually we will. Okay, we'll transit into it, but probably you need another catalyst to push it through. Okay, I can tell you the semiconductor industry, right? The catalyst here also comes from COVID, where things starts to lock down. And then there is certain protocol of social distancing. Factories production are slower. There's certain catalysts that kind of push this, right? So sustainable energy, I don't see that happening yet. Okay, so perhaps you might not want to focus on that yet. Okay, just focus on semiconductor and AI. I think that's great. Yeah, so hope that helps. Hey, good. I see Randy here sharing that here that there will be a major fall on end of July to Sep. Yeah, if you are talking about, let's say, equities market, those are the season. I would say the seasonal part here is that general equities tends to rally from now until end of July, and then end of July, that's where have a slower month, and then the market tends to correct, things like that. Yeah, right. That's based on historical statistics, historical data. That tends to happen. Okay, so you're right in that perspective. Yeah. Cool. I don't look into Malaysia equities market. Okay. For me, the US offers very attractive opportunity, right? So that's why I'm only focusing on the US side. Okay. A pound dollar, just nothing much on that, right? One of you are asking about pound dollar. Just stay out of it. Okay. This is not an environment you want to be executing trades on. Okay. In terms of like German DAX, um, there's a good chance German DAX is likely gonna come down. Okay. I mean it's not gonna likely crash, but there's a very good chance German DAX has this probability where it can come back down towards 15355 area, 15350 area. Okay. Because of this structure here. Okay. There's lack of momentum to the upside, so there's a good chance this will drop. Okay, German DAX. So, if you're long term, don't sell it. I think this is just a very small move. Okay, but if you're a short term trader, maybe on a 1 hour scale, you can look up for sell opportunity. Okay, you're seeing quite a decent rejection for today market as well. Maybe just wait for a flag and then you can take that trade down. Okay, definitely quite this is short term, definitely is the sell side, right? But if you're looking for longer term, if let's say you're investing into this index, then just wait for the drop, wait for the correction, and then you accumulate at the bottom. Yeah. So yeah, that's on German DAX. Uh, cool. Okay. Cool. Okay. I see Aaron asked for BNB. Yeah. Uh, Airbnb is a very tricky company to be investing for now. Okay, because again, globally you are not able to travel. Um, basically industry that deals with vacation at this moment is more or less quite tough. Okay, so I would say if you're looking at Airbnb, you probably do not want to touch it based on the big picture idea. Okay, based on macro, based on the whole industry right now. Um, yeah. Okay, and honestly, the chart here is not giving you a very clear sign as well. This can of course do this and then go back up a little bit and then still come back down and then form something like that. And you need to also look at Airbnb if it's a sustainable company. Is it worth investing in? But from the chart, I would suggest not to touch Airbnb for now. Okay, yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah. So great. See if there's any other one. Zoom and Facebook. Facebook is definitely a company that's worth investing. Okay. We'll take a look at Zoom. Zoom actually had quite a nice bounce. Okay, from this low here. Okay. From daily perspective, we put in this line first. Where we are. We're actually just breaking out. Okay, but don't buy yet. Of course, want to share with you that don't just trade the buy out of the line. Okay. Now Zoom here, based on the daily perspective with this impulse push, it has a good chance that it can still go higher. Okay, I think Zoom has really benefited from its 2020 transition, right? If you're in Singapore and Malaysia before the whole COVID thing, likely you're not using online meeting. Okay, but because of 2020, more people are using online meeting like Zoom. Okay, so this company really managed to write off that whole wave. The price actually up. Okay, now for now, I would say yes, price is breaking that structure line. Okay, but you want to be giving it maybe a couple of days and see if this forms a consolidation like that. If it does, then yes, you can take this straight up. Okay, but if it doesn't, then you want to be cautious because this can easily just reject, come back down. Okay, so you probably need to give it like this week to see if it's gonna form a consolidation. Like here, then yep, you can take the trade to the upside for Zoom. Okay, FB is pretty straightforward. I think this is a company that can deal with AI trend as well. So big picture, definitely to the upside. Okay, Facebook is a no-brainer. Okay, it's rich in cash. It has all the data that it can leverage and really capitalize on the next AI trend. Okay, so definitely long term, it's worth investing into Facebook. But in terms of short term here, the chart is not really as clear. Okay, so from a chart perspective, you need more information. Okay, but for now, I'm not saying that. Okay, so Facebook, you probably need to give it more time. To give you kind of like a clear consolidation, then you get this impulse correction, and then you can take the trade out. Yeah, so that's on Facebook. Very straightforward. Okay. Yeah. So Wei here actually mentioned that with COVID ending, maybe Airbnb will rally. Okay. That one you probably also still need to take a look at fundamental of Airbnb, whether the company can really tide through it and that having that cash flow to sustain itself and things like that. Um, okay, actually Snapchat, I was previously looking at that also. Okay, you can see my drawing over there. But I don't like the fundamental of Snapchat. Okay, Snapchat actually pushed very very high up, right? Of course, there's a catalyst on Snapchat. You know, depending on your generation, I don't use Snapchat. Okay, but there's a cool thing about Snapchat is where there's this filter thing. Okay, it's something like Instagram, but Snapchat has this filter where they allow businesses to run advertisement on using filters, right? So this is, I think, if you're in the US, probably you're more familiar with this. Okay, where let's say you can actually Vendy, right, the Wendy's, the fast food chain, can actually kind of like create a filter and then put it into Snapchat, pay Snapchat for it, and then users can now use Wendy's filter and play around with it. Okay, and that is actually advertisement for this, okay? And that's how Snapchat has that's the catalyst that kind of push Snapchat higher. Okay, why is because it has a very direct source of potential space to play with and a direct source of revenue from there. Okay, but the thing is, I'm not too into this space. So for me, I do not want to spend too much time to follow and then really do that research on there. And therefore, I'm just putting this aside. Okay, but for those of you who are interested, definitely you can keep a look at Snapchat. Even this social media's company like Twitter, right? For some reason, the charts are showing sign of it going higher. Okay, but again, I'm not a Twitter user, so usually I don't kind of like spend too much time on that. If you're in Southeast Asia, Twitter is also not very popular. But if you're in the US, right, whoa, tweets is everything, right? I think you know about Elon Musk, okay? Yeah, so again, when I'm looking at companies or equities in specific, I also look into whether I'm into that space, right? How much I know about it. If I really don't use it, I have no idea what it is, I don't really look to invest in them as well. Yeah, so hope that helps. Good. Okay. Great. So that's all from me today. Hope you guys benefit from it. Okay. So if you do, just feel free to share this with your friends. Invite them to join in on a weekly routine. My intention over here is to help you as much as I can. Okay, give you some ideas, some potential that you can focus for the week. Then we're just gonna talk and discuss about the market. Yeah, so that's all from me today. If you guys have any other questions, always join in next week. Then continue our conversation from there. Okay, so that's all from me. All the best for you guys who are trading this week, and I'll see you guys next Monday. Okay, good night. Bye.